We begin today's story in the pitch-black nothingness of the void. As our MC wakes up from his long slumber, the first question in his mind is what in the world happened? He wasn't even sure how long he'd been drifting in the endless light. You won't hear him complaining though. Drifting through this place felt safe, cozy even. But his endless drift into bliss was interrupted by a strange sound. His first thought was that maybe his dad had finally come home. He couldn't be more wrong. The sound came from a system prompt, welcoming our boy, Anthony. It was a personalized greeting. The system prompt has better manners than most normal people. The next block of text wasn't as courteous though. It was a cold notification that Anthony had died. He should have seen something like this coming. The voice of the prompt didn't sound like his father at all. If he's dead, then where in the world is he? The last thing he remembers was casually reading a book in the comfort of home. Then there's a very real possibility that this place of endless brightness is heaven. But if it is, then where's the swimming pool and all-you-can-eat buffet? The system tried to reassure Anthony to be calm, as he would soon awaken to experience life again, albeit in a new world. It came from a voice that was deep and gruff, a voice that sounded exactly like that legendary figure dressed in all white, the one worshipped with devotion all over the planet. If you guessed Jesus, then you're wrong. The system sounded exactly like Gandalf. The endless light dissipated, revealing a cloudy blue sky while he was informed that he'll be reborn into the world of Pangera, where destiny and luck shall determine his fate. Anthony wasn't ready yet. He tried to plead for Gandalf to wait since the parting words made it sound like he'd be living a life filled with adventure, peril, and opportunity at every turn. Maybe there'll even be magic and fantastical creatures. Ignoring his yapping, Gandalf gave Anthony the rundown of his status after being reborn. He's at level 1 with 15 might, 12 toughness, 25 cunning, 18 will, 30 HP, and 0 mana. Seeing the spread immediately inflated his confidence. He sounded strong on paper. Maybe he'll be like the protagonist in his favorite video game, Tales of Telda. But a more detailed rundown listed his skills as digging, acid shot, grip, and bite. There's also the species identification listing him as a hatchling ant worker. If his mana is non-existent, then he can say goodbye to the dream of being a sorcerer. Gandalf has some explaining to do, and his skills rundown was just weird. There's the bite, then there's the much more bizarre acid shot. Where the hell were his overpowered MC skills? The most alarming of all was being listed as a hatchling ant worker, a Formica. He'll not only be reborn as an ant, but a newly hatched worker ant at that. Maybe Anthony royally screwed over someone in his past life, so Gandalf the system is punishing him. But that's impossible. He barely had any connection to other people in the past. Judging by his empty bookface inbox and his crippling introversion, he was painfully reminded that he didn't have any friends or any other meaningful connections. Gandalf urged him to go forth and forge his own path. Maybe it will be the ant's path. If that's the case, then Gandalf can just go and forge his mother too. Wholly unprepared for what's to come, the gruff voice started counting down for the initialization of the soul transfer. 3, 2, 1. It felt like everything went mute when the count finished. Soul transfer has been successfully completed, and with it comes the booting of the hatching process. Anthony has been thrust into a bizarrely uncomfortable position. His body felt weird. It felt like being squeezed in from all sides as he shook fervently. He wasn't fully buying all the text boxes from earlier, but he's really being reborn as an ant. It's really happening. Surveying his new frail body, he felt 6 legs. That's one check for the ant body checklist. 2 antennae are present. His strong mandibles are fully functional. Counting from head to the end of his abdomen, he counted 3 distinct body segments. He used to have pet ants, and now he's become one as well. It sounds like a weird nightmare scenario. Not to mention the poor lighting condition. It's darker than a moonless night in his current location. Everything's pitch black, and it's not helping that his vision's as blurry as can be. But upon walking for a little bit, Anthony started seeing some faint and blurry, but behind the light at the end of the tunnel, there was something blue. Fortunately, he can still see colors. Aside from that, he wondered what else he was capable of. Maybe it's time to use his new ant anatomy to its full potential. Sensing the environment using antennae felt weird, but he could feel unidentifiable smells and air currents ahead. The standout smell was the scent of staleness, which indicates that he must be under the ground. But if he's an ant, then wasn't he supposed to smell pheromones? With no pheromones to sense, then where's his brethren, the colony? Anthony has been given a second chance in life, and he doesn't want to be a loner in this one too. Upon walking for a few more minutes, he started catching on to the scent similar to his. Maybe a new comrade was waiting at the other side of the tunnel. He just needs to follow the blue pulsating light while hoping that nothing bad can happen as he reunites with an ant brother. His excitement grew the closer he drew to the exit. He excitedly scurried to meet a fellow ant body determined to assist in whatever task they'd need for the glory of the colony. But his arrival at the end of the tunnel did not go as he expected it would. His new comrade looked like he was in deep trouble as he flew in the air against his will. On the other side was an abominable beast, grinning happily with his sharp teeth on full display. Densely packed muscles contained under a strong layer of rough scales. It's the stuff of nightmares for someone as small as Anthony the ant. With the possible comrade neutralized, the reptilian beast was free to predate on his prey while smugly crunching away. He didn't even eat the ant in one go. He bit the poor guy's body into pieces first. Anthony started panicking. He's just a guy who loved ants and books. He didn't sign up for whatever this was. As much as he would like to refuse, this was really happening. This is his reality now. Ants getting chowed down and trampled by monsters. The other ant trapped in the monster's feet looked at him with pleading eyes, and it felt like a wake-up call. What can a single ant even do in his position? Well, there's just one thing that came to Anthony's mind. It's his only move. It's to run as fast as his newly hatched 6 legs could possibly move. Run like his life depended on it, because it did. Running for the first time in a new body, he was clumsy as hell. He even tripped and fell face first. After running for a long time, he should have escaped the territory of that monster now. But what if another one casually waltzes down this tunnel and spotted him as a quick snack? His only way of survival was to throw away his human conventions and to think like an ant. As if by instinct, he knew what he had to do. Dig. Dig as hard as he could. It's one thing to know what an ant would do, but it's another to execute it. His legs were not cutting it. He was just scratching the ground. That's when Anthony remembered his time observing his pets. Ants use their mandibles to dig, so he basically needs to dig the ground using his face. Without wasting another second, he immediately buried his dependable mandible in the rough surface and started munching on dirt. Now this is what you call digging. He made more progress in just a few seconds using his face compared to using his legs for a few minutes. After digging to an appropriate depth, he carved out a spherical space with plenty of room to move. With a new base camp established, Anthony the ant could finally lie on his back after a hard day's work. He's safe for now, but getting spotted by other animals would be a death sentence. How did he even get to this place in the first place? It hadn't even been a full day and he had already encountered a fearsome beast. New ants should be born inside a colony, protected and surrounded by allies. Judging by the fate of his poor fellow ant up in the reptile's territory, things are messy. He might not be the only one dropped into these hopeless straits, which means that a raid was afoot. With a bit more time to think, Anthony remembered that Gandalf the system said something about a skill point and biomass. The world that Anthony now inhabits is a mystery. The descent of the system resulted in the civilization's hefty gains, but they can no longer recall what they've lost. Back to Anthony's dilemma, he currently has 1 skill point and 1 biomass to spend. He has to make it count. If this is a game-like situation, there should be some sort of menu screen he can access. At first, he tried raising his legs and screaming "level up" into the air. Not only did it not work, but he also looked like a fool too. Another idea cropped up in his mind. Maybe this one will do the job. He resolutely swiped in the empty space in front and yelled "status open" as loud as he could. And it worked. A very interesting text prompt appeared in front of him. He still can't tell if his stats are high or low, but regardless, he can see them freely now. At the Skills tab, he saw Grip. Maybe it means that he'll be able to hold on to things pretty good. In its description, it stated that grip is the ability to hold on to surfaces and objects without letting go. An example of its application is the ability to walk through walls. Anthony's eyes sparkled with joy after reading that. This might be the merciful and triumphant return of Lord Gandalf the System, his Lord and Savior. He might just be a text box, but he would surely have the most luxurious beard and eyebrows in the world. In lieu of a better name for this praiseworthy voice of blessing, Gandalf will stay Gandalf for the time being, and Anthony will praise that name for he has been bestowed the most precious gift, the ability to access crucial information with a single thought. Looking at his skill spread, he knew that focusing on making the right choice was vital. Should he take the acid shot? Maybe improving his digging abilities would provide more benefits. Gandalf is great, but it's up to Anthony to figure out what his skills can do. As far as he knows, there are many species of ants on Earth that are capable of shooting formic acid from their rear zone. So he must belong to one of those monstrous species of acid-spraying ants. It opens up the option to attack without getting too close to the target. It's a course of action that could lead to avoiding instantaneous destruction in combat. A long-ranging attack would be very helpful. But considering his current predicament, biting, crawling, digging, and shooting acid aren't really the best tools to focus on right now. What Anthony severely lacks is information. He hasn't figured out where the heck he is and what kinds of other creatures inhabit this place other than ants and croca beasts. He's pretty positive that he doesn't have vocal cords, so he only has himself to rely on for info gathering out in the tunnels. Going out there alone with who knows how many strange horrors could cause unspeakable harm would be madness. Just thinking about what could kill an ant on the surface was already mortifying. Anthony had to try and calm himself down from having a full-on panic attack. He must stay rational and chill to stay alive. After giving himself a pep talk, Anthony locked in. He only has himself to rely on from now on. He's already figured out his base skills, he just needs to spend his skill points. That's the million-dollar question though. How does he even go about it? The answer came just as he was thinking about it. Gandalf himself gave him the prompt to spend his skill points. He couldn't help but praise this wise and magnificent disembodied system voice. He wished for Gandalf, the bringer of hope and light's beard, to remain fluffy as ever. There are a lot of options, so it's hard to narrow down the optimal choice. He needs to go about this thing logically. Being able to run faster would undoubtedly help him escape enemies when push comes to shove. Tunnel sense would also make it easier for him to navigate the field of the underground. Bite and acid are purely offensive moves that could help him fight more effectively when the situation calls for it. As for body improvements available to purchase with biomass, he could choose exoskeleton, mandibles, legs, eyes, antennae, and acid gland. It's not far-fetched to say that out of all the inhabitants of this area, he's currently the weakest. So he chose to improve his eyesight using 1 point of biomass, and he spent his 1 skill point on stealth, effectively improving his ability to hide and move without being seen. Upon confirmation, his eyes started burning like hell. It was like a literal fire was ignited in his cornea. The sudden pang of pain felt like a betrayal from Gandalf himself. Anthony rolled around the floor, trying to distract himself from the pain of his burning eyes. But once things had settled down, he admitted that it wasn't really as bad as he thought for body improvement. If he still had a human body, the process would have undoubtedly taken forever. Now he has gained effective countermeasures for what the territory has to offer. With newfound confidence, he crawled his way out of the tunnel because it was time to explore. His vision felt clearer. There are no distinct smells or detectable vibrations in the distance. He was presented with a choice between 2 pathways. The right path is where the beast ate the other ants, so that's a no-go, which leaves him with only 1 choice. Go left and take on whatever this path may have in store for him. The panicking ant was gone. Anthony, the confident explorer, had taken over. He hurriedly crawled as fast as possible, and his speed wasn't bad at all. Anthony laughed inwardly as his adventure was going on without any hitch. Logic dictates that hanging upside down should help his stealth and grip skills. Now he just needs to use his new eyes. Compared to before, he could see a little better now. He even spotted mysterious twisting and branching blue veins in the rocks. With improved vision, he can also see what's going on with his body. With time, a newborn ant's soft and white exoskeleton should harden. Continuing his crawl, he eventually reached the end of the tunnel and was greeted by a blinding light. It was coming from the blue veins and the pool of water in a cavern. The reservoir was huge, but so were the monsters hanging around it. He was so focused on the water that he almost didn't see the fearsome beasts lurking around. Assuming that he's the weakest creature right now, he'd be as good as dead if he's seen. Stealth will not only be vital for survival, but also for effective information gathering. As for his eyesight, everyone knows that having bad eyesight sucks. Anthony was so used to human vision that switching to pathetic ant eyes was disorienting. If something wasn't moving, he could barely see at all. You must remember that ants are a communal species, thousands to millions of weak individuals combining to create something strong. A single ant would have terrible senses, and they make up for it with unity. That's precisely what makes his position miserable. He's all alone, and he's supposed to survive when he could trip over a napping dragon with his bad eyesight. So, he was determined to make improving his eyes a priority, and wouldn't stop until he could spot a cockroach twitch through 5 meters of solid stone. After some time, Anthony developed his new red exoskeleton. As he surveyed the cliff above the pool, he started hearing some awful noises all around. Walking up to the walls, he knew that he needed to get a closer look. After a few minutes of gripping and racing to the top, he's almost at the source of the sound. Charting the ground with his improved eyes, he just can't seem to pinpoint the spot. He could barely focus with all the strange blue lines wriggling on the surface getting in the way. Seeing the droplets of water coming out of the ceiling, he finally saw the source of the water pool. But that shouldn't be the source of the bizarre noise he kept on hearing. Anthony really needs to lock in, as there must be something else that he's not seeing. It was common sense, but he failed to connect the dots. Of course, it was the monsters that were making those noises. From the safety of the ceiling, he observed the growling wolf beast below. Noticing that the dog's eyes were drifting his way, he immediately hid behind a protruding rock. That was way too close for comfort. Maybe it's time to test out his new ability. Anthony finally busted out his brand new stealth mode skill. His red exoskeleton immediately turned transparent. It was sick. With his exposure being taken care of, he should be able to observe what's up with this pool in peace. He already got a good look at that nasty wolf lizard beast that almost spotted him earlier. What's next up to take note of is none other than his worst enemy, the one that slaughtered his fellow ants. The homewrecker and baby snatcher himself, the malignant crocobeast. No matter how he looked at this monster roster, Anthony couldn't help but feel that something was off about the situation. None of these dangerous creatures were attacking each other. It's like they have a quiet agreement made in a round table or something. Anthony didn't cross out the possibility that he missed a great monster peace treaty meeting or something like that. He knew that it would be impossible to get any solid answers by staying still in one place. Maybe moving a little closer to the action would help, but he must constantly remind himself that slow and steady wins the race. Crawling down from the ceiling took a few minutes with his size. If ants could physically sweat, then water would already be running off his entire body so fast that it would be enough to fill a second pool in this mysterious cavern. But his exercise wasn't for naught. Moving around with stealth active has leveled it up to level 2. He traveled a significant distance to get down to where the action was. His initial suspicion regarding skills was correct. With constant use, they can be trained to higher levels. Hiding and observing would essentially allow him to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. He could actively gain precious information while training his stealth. While his confidence was ballooning, he had to shoot it down and snap out of it. Being too cocky like this was bad. If he's spotted, he'll be dead meat. Calming down, he got close enough to see the next set of monsters roaming around the water. There were beasts tangled in a clump, so it was pretty hard to see what it really was. Upon getting closer, he was greeted with piercing red eyes, blue pincers, and legs, hundreds and hundreds of legs. Anthony saw the gruesome anatomy of the centipedes and couldn't help but throw up. He cursed this damn dungeon for showing him something so disgusting. He could really use some meds right now. As for the last resident of this cursed place, the lizard monster didn't look so bad. He does need to watch out for those nasty spikes though. He might be the weakest right now, but Anthony could see the possibility of turning all these terrible creatures into a possible harvest of biomass. All the points in the world are just waiting for him. But in order to do that, preparations need to be made and they have to be thorough. Over the next few hours, he diligently stayed over the pool while gradually shifting his position to stay hidden from the residents. He carefully observed the way the creatures moved, taking special note of where they went after leaving the pool area. On hour 1, the first pair to depart were the centipede beasts and the crocobeast. Strangely, they headed for the same place to exit. On hour 2, the next one to call it a day were the wolf lizard beasts. They went straight for a small tunnel at the south end. On the 3rd hour of observation, the last one to leave the pool was the spiky lizard as it crawled to a wall and disappeared. It looks like we have another wall dweller like Anthony himself. He'd call the reptile brother if he didn't have to hunt down and eat the prey. That intense espionage session raised his stealth to level 3. In this place, patience is rewarded. It came at a perfect time too because his poor ant claws needed a break badly. After arriving at his exit point, the home sweet home was finally just 1 dig away. Anthony wished that he could relax, but he can't afford to do so. There's more work that has to be done. First, he could desperately use more breathing room in his base camp. That's going to require some digging. Using his strong mandibles, he started munching on the ground excitedly. He diligently gathered the soil by instinct in the process of securing his place. Just when he hit digging level 2, a notification congratulating him for securing a proper nest sounded out. Finally, after digging like a madman, he could take a little breather. He felt a familiar feeling akin to when his family stopped sending him money and neglected to put food in the fridge. He's starting to get hungry, and he's no stranger to the sensation. As his stomach grumbled, he convinced himself that he just must wait. When he wakes up, he can go to hunt his first prey. He already has a spiky target in mind after all. The next day quickly came, and Anthony was currently perched on the ceiling of the cavern. His claws dug into the cold rock and a single thought was floating in his mind. He was so hungry that he was drooling at the sight of the monsters below. But with hunger comes weakness and shakiness. He was starting to run out of steam, bit by bit. His mind was filled with chocolates, bread, cakes, and steaks, all the delicious things he was able to eat in his previous life spinning through his head. The hunger has gotten so bad that his mind is starting to play tricks on him. The last time he saw the crocobeast, he could have sworn that it looked like a piece of meat and nearly leapt down for a bite from the ceiling. Even the nasty centipedes are starting to look more and more like a tangle of delicious noodles served on a golden platter. Anthony needs to take care of this hunger problem before he gets himself killed by chomping on something that he shouldn't. He's been prepping his next move for way too long to let his stomach get in the way of progress. 2 days. It has been 2 whole days of prep work. He studied every aspect of this end of the cavern in excruciating detail. 2 days of little to no sleep combined with debilitating starvation are giving him trouble focusing on staying awake. He has spent so much time hanging upside down over the water basin that he nearly fell asleep and dropped into the water multiple times. Looking at that mysterious pool, he knew that falling would be a swim that was far from enjoyable. A welcome side effect of pushing himself to the limits as a spy with his stealth mode active the whole time was raising the ability to level 4. Thanks to spending his downtime digging away and expanding his hiding place, his dig ability has climbed up to level 3. That's what Anthony does. He prepares and he grows. That's how the weak can target the strong. Still, hunger is a hard enemy to face. He could only hope that he could successfully conquer his first prey soon. As his antennae twitched, he sensed the target closing in. He could already smell the stench coming from the beast. When Anthony saw the light being reflected from a pair of reptilian eyes inside a groove, he knew that it was almost showtime. His chosen prey has been using the wall on the side of the cavern as a resting place, crawling down to get a drink in the pool once each day. It's basically an isolated creature with a predictable movement pattern, a creature that can be defeated. After a few minutes, the spiky lizard finally came out of its hidey hole for its daily drink. It's about time to test if Anthony's prep work could lead to a successful execution. Activating stealth, he quietly walked on the wall, trying to catch up to his reptilian prey. He assured his stomach that they wouldn't have to wait long. They just need to get in the right position to strike, and the mission will succeed. Upon getting a closer look at the lizard's spikes, he knew that getting stung by one of those would be mortifying. But he can't start thinking fearfully now. Fear is the mind killer, and his stomach is counting on him. He's prepared so much that he can't afford any distractions. The timing of his pounce will determine everything. Once his planned position had presented itself, Anthony did not waste a single second to attack. His stealth gave him the opportunity to spew out his acid shot from above, splashing it on one of the lizard's legs. Anthony was already celebrating inwardly, as Phase 1 was a success. Getting out of stealth mode, the lizard was squealing in agony with its leg melted to the flesh and bone. When the prey finally saw the one responsible for its pain, Phase 2 came into full effect. He taunted the lizard, asking it if it really wanted to battle on the wall, an action that was practically akin to courting death. Anthony's incredible grip still is already at level 3 after all the espionage he did. Neither the wall nor the lizard would be a challenge to him. Also, he has the natural advantage of being nimble and light while the beast is heavy and slow. With feet burning from the acid, maneuvering around the wall would be impossible. But the simple-minded beast was blinded by rage. It used its strong tail to try and shake down Anthony. With some extra force injected into the tail crash, the cavern's wall was wrecked while Anthony jumped out of his advantageous position for safety. Everything is going according to plan so far. He was practically playing with his food at this point. His next acid shot was aimed squarely at the lizard's face. Another melted wound. Another session of writhing in pain on the ground. Quickly jumping through the cavern walls, Anthony adjusted his position to a safer and more advantageous spot. The roar of pain coming from the suffering lizard echoed throughout the pool. That's Anthony's cue to wrap this up quickly, as he can't let some other beasts end this fight that he has orchestrated. Succumbing to the corrosive injuries, the lizard was starting to slow down. It's nearly time for it to finally go bye-bye. But before all its strength was sapped out, the lizard actually got one more tail strike left to dish out. This one was beyond Anthony's expectations. The lunge and sudden tail slap caught him off guard. Thankfully, he was far enough to get a split second of space to react and dodge in a panic. With the lizard's final strength spent on a failed attack, Anthony's chance to end things once and for all has presented itself. From the top of the ceiling, he jumped down with his mandibles ready to chomp and hold. A loud and rough crunch filled the area near the pool. Anthony did not dare let go of the prey's rough skin, as now was the time for the final phase. The final phase is simple. It will be a battle of grit as he continues to apply biting pressure on the beast until they finally go on a free fall from the wall. Positioning the lizard below, he let the beast tank the fall damage while continuing his relentless bite. When the lizard finally stopped moving and resisting, he apologized for this is the rule of the world and food is food. Anthony started spitting acid shots all over the lizard's body to help bypass its tough skin. In the process, the acid shot has also climbed to level 2. It was a quick level up. Inspecting the prey, he noticed that the poor thing wasn't dead yet. It looks like they'll have to take the next step the hard way, for both the prey and the predator. That is, Anthony mercilessly munched on the dying lizard's tough body, blood and guts staining the ground. The gruesome crunches filled the room. After some time, his bite climbed up to level 3. It took him 10 whole minutes to do it, but the horrific job was finally done. After being reinvigorated by the sustenance, Anthony felt like a daredevil that had just hunted. He felt like a knight fresh from his latest death-defying battle. He came, he saw, he conquered type thing. He literally gobbled up the enemy after the win. Now that he's thinking about it, he realizes that he's never worked this hard for something. No. He never pushed himself for anything in his past life. Looking back at how he lived, he mostly remembers feeling numb all the time. But now, he has defeated a level 2 Spinetta Lacertos, reaching level 2 with the XP drop. An additional skill point has been awarded. Gandalf was suddenly so talkative with all the notifications. So, this lizard is a Spinetta Lacertos, a name that sounds vaguely Latin. This was not his first encounter with Latin characters. His species assignment has him labeled as Formica. Recalling his ant-keeping hobby, Formica should be the Latin name for woods ants. If every creature in this world has a Latin name, then his book smarts will undoubtedly come in handy. Aside from that revelation, he also learned 3 very important things regarding his situation. First, he can gain experience to increase his level after defeating other creatures. Second, he can earn a new precious skill point to allocate at every level up. And third, since this Spinetta thing was a level 2 monster, he can assume 2 more conjectures. The lizard was either born at level 2 or it managed to level up once. More importantly, he can't possibly forget what he came here to do, and that is to claim the body of his prey to strengthen his own. As a hunter, a predator, he must eat and get stronger. Consume the flesh of the strong and the weak. Anthony was grateful for the food, don't get him wrong, but the taste of the lizard meat was far from appetizing. It was wretched to the point of inducing another throwing up session. But now that he has consumed meat from a new source of biomass, he has been awarded 1 point. Gandalf just kept on yapping to him today. Lying down in the cavern, his stomach grumbles were replaced with loud burps. He should be set when it comes to food for the next week, at the very least. Aside from the satisfaction of a full belly, he also has another bonus harvest from Gandalf. For now, it's time to retreat to his nest while formulating his next move. Once he reached the top of the cavern, Anthony looked down on the beasts below. They were completely obsessed with the pool's water. They don't even know that one of their neighbors has gone missing. After several minutes of scurrying around later, Anthony finally arrived at his humble nest, touching his hands together like an evil mastermind as it was time to plot another plan. First, let's have a quick check on his updated status after the hunt. His stats are pretty much the same, but his skills have grown tremendously. He couldn't help but feel like a lone ant going on a thrilling adventure and experiencing incredible growth. Even against the crash of destiny and all the unforeseen circumstances, he'll still prevail. Against all odds, he will survive, no matter how stacked it is against him. But that's enough daydreaming for one day. He needs to get down from the clouds and be realistic now. Shaking his head from left to right, Anthony locked in on the present. Right now, he needs to make another pivotal decision, and it requires him to be prudent. He only has 2 biomass points to spend, so he'll have to consider all the options carefully. His gaze kept on going to the same place, his eye mutation. He wanted to evolve his eyes to +2 for the love of the blessed light. When Gandalf's voice asked him if he wanted to spend 2 biomass points to reach the next level, Anthony did not hesitate to confirm. He really could not get used to the abrupt effect of burning his eyes out for the sake of improvement. He hated the burn so much. After a while, his eyes were watering from the pain. But it was finally over. His current vision is still far worse than the average human's eyesight, but it will have to do for now. Now, he has to spend his single skill point. Luckily, this decision wouldn't be too hard as he already had a skill in mind for some time now. And that skill is called Tunnel Sense. He's been in this cursed place for a few days now, but he's still clueless about most of its aspects. There are just too many unknowns in this world, so Tunnel Sense could be vital for his long-term survival. Using this new ability, he can essentially broaden the range of his every action. It would allow him to explore farther than his comfort zone while still being secured to make it back to his only place of relative safety, his nest. When Gandalf asked for confirmation, Anthony happily obliged with a smile on his little face. Obtaining a new skill felt wildly different from the pain of the body modification process. He described it as feeling like water running through his hair in a shower, except it was flowing and happening deeper inside his head. After a few moments, Gandalf informed him that Tunnel Sense had been learned. He could only hope that it would show how effective it was in his next exploration mission. Anthony gathered some leaves from the cavern and fashioned them into a bed. Before his next exploration, he rightfully deserves a nice and comfy nap. While he was slumbering, the sound of human footsteps was closing in. 2 figures that looked to be human were traversing a dense forest with a single source of light. The woman asked the man if he saw something. He assured her that it was nothing, it's just that his mind has been playing tricks on him lately. Besides, wherever they are going, any monster that would try to threaten them would be in for a very rude awakening. With his belly no longer bothering him with hunger, Anthony felt like he was sleeping on cloud 9 in pure bliss. It was so comfortable that he wished to stay in this place forever. But his paradise of a dream was interrupted when he was jolted awake. He managed to roll out of his bed and planted face first into the hard ground below. In hindsight, he should have seen it coming. Dreams like that are always too good to be true. but it gave him the clarity to forego lingering on unobtainable things. It's time to focus on exploration and mapping out a plan for his next prey. Anthony the ant snickered deviously. Before doing all the busy work, there was something else that he wanted to try. Using his antennae as a makeshift heart symbol, he yelled "unlock" inside his mind like a magical girl. When that didn't work, he tried the keywords access profile. He thought about using Gandalf's example through using Open Sesame like the movies, but didn't even bother trying. He really thought that one of those would work to accomplish what he was trying to do. After consuming the lizard, Gandalf informed him that he had unlocked a basic profile of the Spinetta Lacertos, but he was struggling to find the right keyword to access the damned thing. It only occurred to him now that maybe he's been overthinking the entire process a little too much this whole time. So, he loosened his grip from his nest's ceiling, falling to the floor and yelling the Latin name of the lizard while making a superhero landing. Surprisingly, it worked. The whole basic profile of his first prey has been opened for him to read. Gandalf really has his back in times like this. Spinetta Lacertos can be translated to thorn lizard. It has sharp spines that contain dangerous venom. After all the trouble that he went through, that tiny tidbit of info was the only thing he got. It was very disappointing. But Anthony needs to get a grip. It already stated that it's just a basic profile after all. Perhaps the system works gradually. If he hunts and consumes more of the same species, he might be able to access a more detailed profile with more useful information. He chose to shove that matter away for now. He has more pressing matters to attend to as it's time to pursue his next task. His trip back to spy on the residents of the pool felt a lot lighter as he sang while traversing the ceiling. Another day, another monster to make a prey. From the looks of it, it seems like not much has changed since he returned to his nest after feasting. He noticed a tiny difference from before though. With his newly improved +2 eyes, the pool below seems to be glowing slightly brighter than it did in the past. What he's most curious about in this predicament is related to the pool and its water. On his first day in this place, he almost became a snack for the croca beast, yet all the running didn't make him thirsty. On day 3, he found the leaves for his makeshift bed, and he didn't feel thirsty either. Day 6, when he finally gorged himself with lizard meat, and he still didn't crave a drop of water. While all these monsters come out of their way to drink from the pool, Anthony, an ant monster himself, has not felt thirsty at all. He was supposed to be a monster too, right? So, what compels the other cavern residents to drink the water when he personally doesn't have the urge to do so? Is there something fundamentally different about them or himself? With those questions in mind, Anthony already knows what he has to do next. He scurried down from the ceiling to finally investigate the mysterious water of the pool and live to tell the tale. It could be incredibly dangerous to go down there, so it's wise to take baby steps first. Even in the face of the dangerous centipede lump, he must remind himself not to go too far and too fast. Observing the beasts around, there really is a large proportion of lizard-like creatures in this damp place. There's the bipedal croca beast and the spiked lizard. Every beast has some sort of reptilian feature in their anatomy. Maybe it's some kind of pattern. While he was lost in thought, he failed to notice that a wolf lizard was curiously and furiously coming his way. Just as it was about to pounce on Anthony, the dog started retreating nervously, confusing our ant boy. Looking behind, it seems like the wolf lizard was wary of the towering centipede. Anthony was lucky enough to avoid the wolf lizard's attention, but the centipede beast is another story. Their whole tribe slithered and hissed like disgusting overgrown mutated insects. Their crimson gaze focused on a lone ant. Judging from their refrain to take action, Anthony thanks the gods that his hypothesis was right. You might be wondering why the survival-minded ant would risk coming into the open in the pool area right about now. Well, there's only one reason why he would expose himself in front of these monsters that could kill him in a split second. With his days of observing the behavior of the residents, he has never witnessed a creature approaching, drinking, or leaving the pool area be attacked. Not even once. It's like a neutral zone of some sort. Now, there are plenty of conflicts during those scouting days for the lizard, but the monsters always take their disputes outside the pool area. In conclusion, there must be something special about this water force to compel the monsters to hold back, and Anthony was positive that it didn't have anything to do with just simple hydration. He knows he can't avoid it out of sheer curiosity, but he really doesn't want to drink the pool water. Anthony just steeled his resolve, closed his eyes, and dunked his face into the pool to drink some of the mysterious water. His immediate reaction was to jump out and roll over, for the water burned like hell on his tongue. The portion that he managed to swallow lit a fire in his insides. It felt like drinking hydrochloric acid for some unknown reason. Is this really what these myriads of creatures have been coming here for? Are they really going to this place every day for this painful, burning water of death? If so, then what the hell is wrong with all of them? Was Anthony reborn inside a cavern full of masochistic monsters? he still couldn't shake off the feeling that he was missing something. Aside from the burning sensation, there was virtually no change to his health. Based on its blockbuster appeal, he was expecting something spectacular to happen since all these monsters seemingly obsessed over some pool water for days on end. But to him, it had no effect. Nothing at all. Since he had done what he came here to do, he just decided to explore the rest of the cavern elsewhere. Before doing that, he just can't resist going for one more sip. This time, he slurped as hard as he could, taking in as much liquid as his tiny body could handle. Just like before, it really freaking burns. He had to roll all over the floor, spitting out what he just ingested out of sheer pain. Throwing up the majority of the pool water, he decided that it was nothing but horrible stuff. He made a mental note to himself to never try that thing again, no matter what. Now that he has somewhat investigated the mystery of the pool water, it's time to expand his exploration of the rest of the cavern to map the cave network using his new tunnel sense. With his newly acquired ability, traveling has become simple. All he has to do is head towards the regions where the light veins are densest. Aside from that, he unexpectedly started smelling something from a distance. It made him question just what sorts of other creatures lurk within these strange tunnels. After picking through his brain while constantly on the move, he accidentally stumbled upon something quite familiar. A man-made structure designed to bridge a large vertical distance between lower and higher levels by dividing it into smaller vertical distances. Those are unmistakably stairs. Looking down the length of the stairs, Anthony noticed that the winding blue lines were also present. Out of curiosity and excitement, he hurriedly made his way into the descent to take a closer look. It appears as if these stairs have been carved directly into the rock. There's even some intricate ornamentation on every step. Now, who exactly would be responsible for carving solid rock? That is the question that he enthusiastically asked himself. Why humans, of course? This was the first tangible evidence that he had come across that any sort of humanoid creature existed in this new world. He couldn't help but wonder what sort of fantasy people live in this place. Anthony daydreamed of saving the mighty dwarves from a power that threatened their very existence. Or maybe he'll encounter the legendary and mystical elves known for their longevity and beauty. No matter what he encounters, he has to admit that things are getting more and more interesting. He was halfway down the stairs when he started asking himself why humans would bother to carve stairs into this particular tunnel and not the other ones. Well, for a self-proclaimed genius like himself, the answer is almost self-explanatory. This path he was walking on must be a frequently used tunnel. Therefore, they've made some effort to make it more convenient to travel down and up on. This means that there is a high likelihood that there are more stairs in the immediate area. Perhaps there's even a path to the surface where he could exit this miserable cavern filled with danger. That possibility gave Anthony the courage to take the next step. Here goes nothing. As he traverses the downward spiral, he realizes that these stairs are even more useful than he initially thought. He couldn't believe that he didn't think of this idea sooner. He can actually use these stairs to measure himself. Assuming that people in this world are roughly the same size as those in his old one, then he could compare his own size to the stairs. He could make a rough estimate of how large he is using those variables. Upon crunching the numbers, Anthony concluded that he might be a little smaller than he initially thought. Judging by the height and length of each step relative to his physique, he should be about a meter tall. But wait, this means that all those terrifyingly massive monsters in the pool would be fairly small from the perspective of a human. Sure, in Anthony's eyes, they look like giants that could stomp out their enemies easily. But from an adult human's perspective, they're probably the same size as normal animals in the old world. This brings Anthony to question the difficulty of the monsters in this area. Could they actually be super weak, tutorial monsters in easy mode? But that line of thought opens up a more terrifying possibility. If the monsters in this place are weak, he doesn't even want to know what other stronger monsters are lurking deeper within. On that note, he had decided not to head straight into his death this time around. It's farewell to the dangerous staircase for now. But upon getting off on a different floor, Anthony noticed even more signs of human activity. There were torches on the walls. The farther he travels, the more signs of civilization present themselves. Perhaps the surface is closer than we think. He went deeper into the tunnel. The farther he got, the fewer pulsating veins of light along the walls were visible. Although this setup was perfect for a stealthy creature like him, he just couldn't shake the feeling that somehow, something was off. His heart was literally pounding in his chest, trying to break free with a mixture of emotions. There's a very real possibility of meeting a real person from another world. Isn't that exciting? He already has so many questions lined up in his mind. What do they look like? What fantastical race will they be? Would they know magic? Maybe there's some sort of adventure guild that explores dungeons. Maybe he'll be able to communicate with them through sign language or some form of interpretative dance. Anthony's mind was flying all over the place, and he was already envisioning the breakthrough in and human relations on the largest scale. He was fairly certain that it's not often that humans encounter the mind of one of their own trapped in a monster's body. It's possible that he's the first of his kind. As he ventured deeper into the cavern, it started becoming narrower and the slope steeper. It didn't take too long for a blinding light to cover his blurry eyesight. Looking above, there's a hole in the cavern ceiling, and if he wasn't mistaken, sunlight was coming in from above. It's the first time that he's seen and feeling the sun. He apologized to the holy light for taking this luxury for granted back in his previous life. With the discovery of sunlight, he concluded that the surface and the outside world were a lot closer than he originally thought. Looking in the other direction, there seemed to be more sources of light ahead, meaning there should be more human construction. Before even finishing that thought, Anthony happened upon a partially opened wooden door. Judging from the design of the structure, he thinks that it might be a guard room in the middle of some dungeon. But the more curious thing was the red light emanating out of the guard room window. This light was different because it was moving along the sound of scrambling footsteps. Who would have thought that it was humans? Real humans clad in light armor and holding some kind of lighting device. Anthony just stood there, amazed at their device that could possibly detect the presence of monsters. Because of how dark these caverns are, it must be hard to traverse and find what they're looking for. While the woman held the device, the man started emanating a magical light in both of his hands. It felt unreal to watch it in real time, but Anthony reckons that this was magic. Real magic. He praised Gandalf for bringing him to a world of magic. He's already wondering if these people would teach him some spells or something. While our boy was foaming at the mouth with the possibilities, the man started aiming his arms in Anthony's direction. Wait, wasn't that red crystal supposed to detect a monster? That must mean that it's active right now. Because he got so caught up in the moment that he forgot that he's also a monster. Anthony was put in a spot where a magical spell has been locked onto him. He's dead meat. It wasn't supposed to go down this way, right? He just made a mistake. But the only prudent decision to make right now was to scurry away like a bug. Run, Anthony, run! He tries to plead mercy from the humans, but he doesn't have the capability to speak. To make matters worse, he tripped on a loose piece of rock on the way to his escape. Anthony wanted to express that he was just a tiny and harmless ant, but the fireball made of mana was already closing in on him. He wasn't hit directly, but his legs were sore from tripping and running. His mind says move, but his legs say otherwise. Trapped and immobile, even more fireballs launched towards the poor ant. He had to muster every remaining fiber of willpower in his muscle to make the next run, using the columns as his cover. Even using cover was useless. In another angle, a single arrow almost pierced his abdomen. If he wants to make it out of this pinch alive, then he's going to need an effective distraction. But first, he must secure an exit route to safety. He shuffled through the random tunnels, using his tunnel sense to judge whether the path was feasible or not. Upon going through 3 pathways, Anthony came upon one with a god-awful stench emanating from within. The humans were already upon him, so he decided to fight like a monster and squirted a 2-way acid shot for each of them. It didn't delay the 2 effectively. It just made them retaliate with another arrow. Anthony was getting good with his reflexes, dodging the whistling arrow by ducking. What's for sure was that his attempt at the human and ant-monster relations had just gone up to smoke. Multiple fireballs desperately chased after the lone ant, as if they're some kind of homing missiles. Anthony had been running for so long that he lost sight of the surroundings, bumping into a protruding rock. But thanks to Gandalf's blessings, he managed to survive and catch a breather inside a tiny tunnel. Realizing what had just happened, he started beating himself up for being so stupid with how he handled the situation. He failed to remind himself that he's not human anymore. And with that, his human privileges have been revoked too. From now on, he needs to take the fact that he's a 1-meter-long monster ant into account in every interaction with others. On the other side of the small tunnel, menacing hissing sounds could be heard. He might have messed up earlier, but he needs to snap out of it immediately. Anthony needs to think about what's better for him right now. Face the hissing centipedes on the other side or the fireballs from the humans behind. But when the man that kept on chasing him with fire ominously poked his head through the tiny tunnel, it looked like his choice had already been made for him. Anthony hit the gas and started running for his life as another batch of fireballs started condensing on the man's hand. Thankfully, he was fast enough to disappear into the darkness before the spell was finished. Using tunnel sense, he expertly traversed the narrow pathways of the underground tunnel, sensing that the centipede clump was not far off. He psyched himself up with an impromptu plan. All he has to do is use the centipede beasts as bait for the humans. Fortunately for him, he has stealth at his disposal to hide his presence from the repulsive lump of dangerous noodles. He reckons that he could use acid spray as a surefire way to piss these insects off, but what comes after that would determine his fate. Escaping the angry horde would be the ultimate race against time, and he's doubtful whether he could pull it off or not. Deactivating his stealth mode, He knew that he didn't have any other options available. So, it's now or never, do or die. He carefully aimed his rear end at the clump and started spewing his corrosive acid shot on the beasts. It was an expertly aimed scatter shot that hit just about every centipede in the clump equally. But an acid shot just wasn't powerful nor corrosive enough to go through the horde's bodies. That's fine though. He wasn't hoping to kill them anyways, but he achieved what he was trying to achieve. He pissed off the lump of deadly centipedes. They immediately went after our poor ant boy with their endless legs for days. Now the race against time has officially begun. Several minutes of intense running later, Anthony was already crying because of the mess that he's tangled with. Getting to the entrance of the tunnel system was just taking so damn long. At this rate, his stamina will run out before he can execute the bait plan. Along the way, there are even some close calls of almost getting devoured as centipedes lunged at him with their powerful bites. Seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, Anthony hit a second wind. On the other side of this thing, salvation is waiting. Like a deranged insect, he leapt out of the tiny tunnel where the man was waiting for him to come out to get charred to bits. The man wasn't expecting that it would be an oversized insect party, as the centipede horde also escaped from the hole like sickening trains. Anthony made a safe landing with all the commotion happening. All that was left to do was make his escape. But that's easier said than done when a horrific crawling beast has been pissed off to chase him to the ends of the globe. Running would be of no use now. He just tucked his body in and repeatedly chanted that he didn't want to die. As if Anthony's desperate chanting reached the ears of a god, the centipede lobsters started blowing up before getting to him. Who was blowing up and cutting up the giant centipedes, you ask? Well, the humans on the other side of the tunnel were just trying to catch an ant. Anthony kept his head down, not daring to attract attention and violence in his direction. He wonders if this is his chance to escape the chaos. He inwardly excused himself as he carefully crawled through the battlefield. It would have been a perfect escape if not for some of the straggler centipedes seeing and chasing after him like tenacious little critters. He was so preoccupied with what was happening behind him only to bump against a human leg up front due to sheer carelessness. Anthony slid back before the human's twisting spear skewered him from above. Moreover, the spear strike supposedly aimed at him landed on the straggling centipedes hot on his trail. Once again, Anthony thanked Gandalf the system for giving him such bountiful luck. He has been spared repeatedly with a higher power's perfectly timed interventions. He would love to praise the bearded wizard more, but he is still in deep trouble. His luck would not be enough to stifle the two enemies trying to catch up from behind. Public enemy number 1, human male guard, and public enemy number 2, centipede beast. After gaining some distance amidst all the anarchy, Anthony manages to activate his stealth. He plans his next move. Where can he hide in this place? He saw an open doorway leading to God knowing where and decided it would have to be done for now. He managed to secure a hiding spot using his stealth ability and sneaky movements. Behind the walls of the doorway, he observed the war between humans and centipedes that he started. He feels terrible about pitting his fellow monster against human guards, but the situation has left him with no other choice. It was between either dying at the end of a human blade and exploding with human magic, or letting his neighbors wage war against the guards. Meanwhile, in the quiet city of Lyria, the diligent Commander Titus is in his office, working until late at night. The lines on his face deepened due to stress because some damned fools just can't leave the dungeon situation to him and his legion. If it were up to the old commander, he would be out 24/7 in the dungeon instead of cooped up in a dark office, burning candlelight with senseless paperwork. These days, his job has consisted of saying the same thing a million times to idiots who don't know right from left, instead of getting a chance to swing his beloved weapon. He almost broke his desk in half out of frustration. That was the wake-up call to calm down and get some good mana-rich air for a moment. Getting out of the dimly lit office, the forward garrison troops outside stood up for the commander. Commander Titus did not acknowledge their presence. He just walked straight out of the halls. Another heavy door opened, and another batch of clean-cut troops stood in attention at their valiant leader. Everywhere he went, everyone would stop what they were doing. He was like a god in this place. The commander pushed through until he reached a simple wooden door with 2 armed guards on either side. Commander Titus demanded a rundown of the situation from Tribune Aurelia, and she diligently complied. 15 minutes ago, a monster approached this guard station before fleeing. The guard team signaled the Centurion on duty before pushing deeper into the cavern. From the human guard's perspective, they were dealing with a grotesque ant monster. They were chasing after something that deserved to be killed with the hottest fire and the sharpest blade. Titus found that rundown weird. He confirmed if the monster did not attack head-on but fled instead. He promptly turned to the unassuming wooden door, alarming Tribune Aurelia and asking where he was going. The commander casually answered that he was simply joining the suppression expedition personally. Commander Titus's interest is piqued by the accounts of a monster with enough intelligence to flee danger. Behind the wooden door, the guard was still busy fighting the intense war against the centipedes. The mages unleashed their best spells to burn the beasts. No matter how ferocious the centipedes were, they were no match against the power of mana. Anthony was trying to get to a better position only to get locked in the middle of the pandemonium, with only his stealth ability to keep him safe. Anyone with eyes could see that this war of humans and beasts is not even a fight anymore. It's just some plain old slaughter at this point. Anthony was powerless. Too powerless to add anything of value in this battle. It's not like he can mince enemies with a long-range mandible attack or anything like that. Clueless times like this always leads him to ask Gandalf what he's supposed to do. Instead of getting Gandalf's advice, he got a crispy slap from a familiar human figure. It was Human Anthony. He thanked Human Anthony for the much-needed wake-up call in desperate times. Looking on the bright side of things, this series of misadventures has confirmed so many things that he was curious about. First, it verifies the existence of magic in the form of human spells. Secondly, there exists a human society in this world. Also, a power gap between his ant self and the humans is there, and it's massive. Another lesson he learned is quite game-changing. For now, the king of attributes is HP. After getting blasted by stone shards and scorched by fireballs, his HP reached the critical point. He was down to 15 HP, which is practically half. But at least he finally figured out how much damage he would take in combat. The cost of that lesson is now that he will need to find a way to regenerate the missing hit points. Thinking of ways to get back to the green zone, he reckons that his HP will automatically recover over time. But it may have to be a little more complicated, and he will need to heal his wounds manually through some method. Either way, he can't just waste the golden opportunity that the war he started has presented in front of him. A near-endless number of beast corpses were laid down on the ground like a buffet. Some were even cooked by flames. For now, he needs to lock in as there is a mountain of biomass waiting to get devoured. Anthony acts on his most primal instinct to ingest those much stronger than him, getting stronger and packing on biomass with every second that passes. It took him quite a while to get from one side of the buffet to another, but his harvest was nothing short of bountiful. By the end of it all, he could barely move and breathe with how full he was. Throughout the whole process, he was just picturing a feast fit for a king, as Gandalf intended. In his mind, the centipedes were cooked correctly and dressed to be as appetizing as possible. But reality always hits once the meat hits his tongue, and travels through his throat. There's no two ways about it. These centipede beasts taste abhorrently horrendous. Thinking about how much of this disgusting meat he had just consumed, Anthony could not help but throw up. Putting the taste aside, the biomass that he gained is more important. His feast for a king unlocked the basic profile of his prey, the Unguibus scolopendra. He opened the damned thing at once, and it was still useless as always. It just states that the claw centipede has a strong claw and a venomous spike in its tail. Before spending his hard-earned biomass, he wanted to take a look at his stats first. Everything has been progressing smoothly when it comes to skills and stats. Furthermore, his HP has started to slightly recover after some time. Now, he has 2 biomass points to freely spend on anything.